Hello, welcome back to Media Snack live from New York.
And greetings from London.
Right, we've had a nice little run in recent episodes in what we called our new season. After we took a little hiatus in August, which was fun. But we've been joined by some incredible marketing leaders in recent episodes. If you haven't seen, last week we were talking to Oliver Maletz at Volkswagen. We talked to Nadine Carp-McHugh, who's running this amazing See Her program, ex-media director of L'Oreal, and others, Ben Jankowski, master with the upfronts. We love talking to marketing leaders, influential marketing leaders, in industry leaders. And we have another exciting one today, but from a different perspective. Stefan Loeck is the CEO of the WFA, the World Federation of Advertisers, which if you're not familiar with, which you probably are, but if you're not familiar with, is the trade body representing advertisers at a global level. And a lot of the domestic trade bodies are members of the WFA as well. So it creates this amazing forum, actually, where you just really have, it's really just a thought leadership forum, really, at a global level, which is incredible. And Stefan Loeck now he's been at the ANA, I think, pushing on 2 decades, and has really shaped that organization. And it's fair to say that not many people in the world that would have more of an ear of a CMO
That's right.
Than Stefan. He gets to hang out with these rock star CMOs every day of the week. So we're blessed that he's humbled himself to come and sit on our little program. And we get asked the question all the time is, what are marketers thinking? What do marketers want? What do marketers want to do next year? Everybody asks that, and it all kind of feeds up. Well, this is the guy that maybe knows the answer, the actual answer, instead of the kind of answers that we might have struggled to give. So that's it. So we're going to talk about the WFA. We're also going to talk about the role of media within the CMO portfolio. I think it's really interesting because we know that that's changed a lot. And there's some amazing initiatives that WFA have been doing and continue to do to support marketers. So good, very exciting. Should we bring...
Let's get him on. There you are.
Hello.
Good afternoon, live from Brussels.
Live in my office.
Good. Well, listen, thank you so much for joining us. Really good. And we've been trying to organize this for a little bit. So I really appreciate your time. So just for the small handful of people that maybe are not WFA members or are not super familiar with it, just give us a bit of a background on the WFA. Because it's a long-standing organization. It's been around certainly since black and white photographs, because I remember seeing photos of early meetings. So where did it come from, and what's the purpose?
So the organization was founded in 1953, so quite some time ago. And back then it was founded on the basis of a dual mission statement, which interestingly hasn't changed much over the last 65 plus years. One is to protect the license to operate of marketers, so interface with regulators, interface with NGOs, with societal stakeholders, in protecting our ability to advertise and connect with people. And in today's day and age, those freedoms are under threat, are being challenged, whether it's data privacy, food advertising, etc., etc. So we spend quite some time on that issue, liaising with global organizations, those which drive those discussions at the global level: World Health Organization, OECD, UNICEF, European institutions, etc. So that's one piece.
Yeah.
And the second is about helping marketers become more effective and more efficient. That's a big promise, and many in the marketplace offer that: consultants, agencies, auditors. We do that in a quite unique fashion. We actually connect the world's most sophisticated brand marketers and help benchmark and share best practice among them. So if you want, we're sort of gateway to the world's smartest marketers, and we help leverage that collective intelligence to support brand marketers in making the right choices. So these are the 2 pillars of our organization.
Yeah, and then as a CMO, obviously it's a responsibility to kind of nurture that responsibility and that organization. But are you also you're the ambitious CMO's therapist as well? I mean, do you get exposed to their deepest, darkest fears and their biggest concerns? Do you?
That's one of the privileges of my role. So I'm the CEO of WFA, so in a way I have three tasks, if you want. Yeah, one is I'm running a small business. We're 25 headcount, growing every year, almost 10%. Our clients are called members, but we're accountable to our board in growing that organization. So that's my job. The second thing is we have an industry transformation agenda, and I'm sure we'll talk about it later in our conversation, but there are some big challenges in front of us, and they require brand marketer-driven solutions. And the third thing is we're pushing a purpose. No, we have a vision in terms of what we want WFA to contribute to, and it holds in two words. It's better marketing. So it's helping better align marketers with society. And in today's day and age, that's more important than ever. And so we do spend quite a lot of time with CMOs. They are our most important clients. Yes.
Yeah, good. Very diplomatically put. Love that. So we've worked very closely with you and the WFA team for years. We've been huge advocates and supporters of the work that you do, particularly in media, and there's been a lot of amazing things that you've done. The WFA has become very famous, really, I think, amongst marketers for the quality of your reporting. And I know it's been a big emphasis of the organization is to gather insight. You know, you survey members a lot on kind of key areas, and you publish not just the research, but often guidelines, which is really informative. The reporting that comes out of the WFA is so accessible and beautifully presented. I think it's a lesson to the entire industry, actually, just using simple language to make a point. And congratulations for that. But this year, I mean, despite all the challenges of this year, you've had some amazing things delivered. We've got, I mean, the media charter came out a couple of years ago, but I know that then you created a board around that, and there's been some real clear actions. If anyone wants to see the media charter, I think that's publicly available, which is a great piece of work, and nice and concise as well. It's not a huge, overwhelming document. We were very excited by the Project Spring initiative this year, which I think it's got to be such a breakthrough. And then you've got other initiatives like the Marketer of the Year, the Global Alliance for Responsible Media, which is, again, another amazing collaboration initiative. When it comes to these, I've always been kind of curious with the WFA, because you report so much. Why do you do that? What's the ambition there? And am I right in thinking that, do you set an agenda to say this has got to be accessible to people because you do so well at it?
Look, first of all, thank you much for the compliments, and those compliments go directly to the team. I think they do a fabulous job, and the work which has been going on during the pandemic is very impressive. They've pivoted to working remotely and done that with such an energy. It's impressive to see, and I'm very proud of them. The reports you're talking about they're just one expression of what we do for our members. We work with our members in peer-to-peer meetings. We do benchmarkings. We run surveys, and some of the stuff then also leads to reports. And why do we do those? I really appreciate that you qualify them as being accessible, as being succinct, and practical, and that's exactly what they should be. You know, this is not a piece of academic contributions to a subject. It's about making really complex issues accessible to marketers, which have day-to-day jobs and don't necessarily have the time to become specialists in all sorts of areas. But what really drives us is two things. One is we want to be focusing on delivering value to our members. Our members are, and our stakeholders are the heads of media, they're the CMOs, etc. They are operating in companies which are facing change on a scale rarely seen before, both in terms of scale as well as speed. They have resources which are finite, and they need to be making the right choices. We're never advising a company to be going left or right. What we're doing is we're providing them insights which help them to cut down on trial and error. That's very much the thinking. Yeah.
Right.
And so the visible piece you're referring to are the reports. Because there are moments where it's not good enough to simply provide insights to marketers to be making the right choices. There are moments where you need to be highlighting areas which are still on the horizon. They haven't yet struck, but they're going to be requiring you as a marketer to rethink the way you operate. Just take a few examples, I think, of WFA reports which have made an impact in recent years. You were mentioning the Global Media Charter. You could mention the Programmatic Report in 2014 with the most downloaded chart of all in our history, in our 67-year history, which is the waterfall chart. 100%, $100, 100 pounds, 100 euros end up being at best 40 net with publishers. And it's interesting to see how those reports then actually change the way marketers operate. I mean, of course, no, we're not pretending that every single report is going to be sort of changing the way our industry operates. But there are some reports which do have an impact, and we're tracking that actually. So we do a benchmark when we go out, and then we go do a benchmark a year or two later to see whether organizations and processes have changed. And in that case, there has been significant change. Sorry. And so these are just a few examples.
Yeah, good. That's good, because that was my follow-up really, which was, how do you as the CEO track progress of the organization and success of the organization, and presumably you can see the impact that these things have on your members.
So I've been with L'Oréal before joining WFA. So I'm a marketer at heart. I love measuring change and performance. I wouldn't be here if it was only about principles and vague objectives. So we have KPIs. The ultimate KPI for an organization, for a membership organization like ours, is revenues, is the number of members. Members are very polite. They won't tell you whether you do well or don't do well. They'll just vote with their feet. They join you or they leave. And so that's the single most important KPI for us. And then there's another one which is really, really important for me. And that is the question of whether people who work for us are proud to work for us. And that's a very important one for me. So this is about growing the organization, but with a purpose. So these are the two KPIs which we apply to ourselves. And then, of course, we do have a vision with respect to the industry, and that is what drives our transformation agenda. And I'm sure we'll talk later on about harmful content and platforms, and about data ethics, and about a number of other of those projects, but there's the sort of two core KPIs are the ones I just mentioned.
Yeah, Stefan, I want to just tease out a little bit about the forums that you talked about. Many of our clients, if not all of them, are members of the WFA, and when we speak to them, one of the things that they find most valuable about being part of your group is you're right, that the environment, the safe environment that you provide for them to share best practice and discuss issues that are concerning them or that they need to kind of address. And often as a client, I was one for a number of years, you feel somewhat isolated, and then you're put in a forum where you're with peers, and you can feel quite liberated in sharing these concerns you have and picking up ideas and solutions from other people. At a time of pandemic where the industry has faced unprecedented, everybody uses the word unprecedented, but these have been unprecedented challenges. Presumably that forum, that sense of network has never been more important. How have you found your members responding and reacting to the current climate, but also the ability to kind of share anecdotes and thoughts and ideas with peers?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, the core USP of the peer-to-peer meetings and forums which we manage is the ability to talk with your peers in a candid, honest fashion. So it's not about presenting a success story at a conference. It's about talking with some of your most respected peers in the industry about the challenges you're addressing. And people often who've never been to any of those forums often struggle to imagine how open those conversations can be, including among competitors. Because sometimes I compare that to Alcoholics Anonymous. This ability to just get it off your chest and just share the stuff you struggle with. And that is a true hugely important benefit. It's also striking to see that many of those marketers hold big positions globally in the organizations, but operate in a very resource constrained environment. No, there are very few of them in companies, and this ability of connecting with their peers and almost using those peers as an external network of support is very much appreciated. Now, to your question, how did the pivot to remote work? It worked incredibly well. Now, if you'd asked me before, honestly, I didn't know what we were venturing into. I mean, of course, we've been working remotely, given we're a global organization, and we do operate remotely. Or we did operate remotely on a regular basis, but to be switching, almost overnight, 100% of our work to remote, for me, that was a big question mark, and it worked incredibly well. And to your point, I think in these times of uncertainty, where basically no one has ever been there, this need to be learning from each other, just hear how others are doing, what they've tried and which has worked, is more important than ever. And what we found is actually we even found actually a lot of availability with CMOs, because the CMOs they're at the very top of the organization, and they need to be figuring out the way forward too. And so that ability to connect with their peers, including in formats which allow them to just take an hour and a half off their calendar rather than a day off, has proven to be actually working pretty well.
Yeah, that's brilliant.
Sorry, I do think there's one thing which we're missing, and this is why I'm looking forward nevertheless to to this thing going away one day, is being in, because we do those forums in the headquarters of companies and in locations all around the world, whether that's China, US, etc. Just being in places which are not your own office, which get you to meet people, which get you just to get a different perspective on things is important. So I'm not saying that we're going to be staying 100% remote, but that certainly has worked.
Yeah, good. I mean, I'd like to just ask you a little bit about the perception of media within certainly the CMO group of your members. I mean, we operate in a privileged perspective at ID Comms, in that all of the brands that we speak to see media as a lever for business growth, and so it's fairly high in the corporate agenda. But as I say, we operate in perhaps what you could refer to as a rarefied atmosphere. As somebody that has conversations with many CMOs, have you seen that? Have you seen the media and its role as a driver in business outcome has become higher and more important in the corporate agenda, or is it still just pockets? Look,
me too. I'm speaking on behalf of a limited sample. Now, given the sheer size and diversity of the community of brand marketers, but the CMOs we work with, and these are 120 of the world's largest brands, I can see a change. Yes, and I would argue I've seen more change in the last 10 months than in the last 10 years.
Wow.
Now it's always difficult to generalize, but I was just looking at the agendas of our CMO forum meetings in recent months. I've never seen so many agenda items on our CMO forums than so many agenda items linked to media on our CMO forums. Just think about issues such as platforms and harmful content. Suddenly, what has been largely a media issue, at times even almost a technician's issue, has been catapulted to the board. Where companies who would never thought about media, would consider it to be a sort of technical function.
That's right.
A board which is asking questions in terms of where do we appear, how are we making the choices, who do we want accountable. And so I'm seeing CMOs taking much more of an interest in media-related issues.
And for those CMOs, are they having to become more sophisticated in their understanding of the dynamics of media in order to have those conversations at kind of board level, or do you find that they're relying perhaps more on their kind of media leaders within the organization to simplify that message and to make the narrative more inclusive?
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, media leaders have a key role to play here in making sure that CMOs and boards understand the issues at stake. So I'm not seeing CMOs now transforming themselves into heads of media. However, I do see CMOs take much more of an interest in some of the underlying issues than in the past, and that's absolutely required. I'm also seeing CMOs and boards ask questions which never been asked before by media leaders. I don't want to caricature, but no, a lot of the media function has been about effectiveness and efficiency for a long time. But suddenly you realize the media spend allocation of a brand tells you something about the values of the brand.
Yeah.
And suddenly you start having actually questions from the CEO. And how do you hold accountable people who operate on our behalf? And that's not only a question of brand safety. It's not only a question of protecting my brand reputation. It's a question of how can I actually leverage my media spend allocation in order to be supporting what the values of my brands are. So in a way, there's a much more strategic marketing conversation around what have been for a long time technical media questions.
Yeah, and that's kind of that came through. We did a media snack on Project Spring, and Tom and I were waxing lyrical about the sentiment around the findings from that. Progressive procurement leaders thinking about media as a value proposition rather than a cost proposition. I mean, that's just kind of that's brilliant. But you're finding that internally. You're finding that the narrative around media is moving quickly away from one of cost and savings and discount and rebates, all the things that has been associated with media for so many years, into one of kind of value and effectiveness gains.
Look, I want to express myself really prudently. There is no doubt that the media agenda has been propelled onto the agenda of CMOs and boards in many companies. What I'm seeing is that some of the most influential brand owners in our community are embracing this big time. Yeah, and so you know that the brand marketing community is a very diverse community, and they don't act as one company clearly. But you usually have a clue when a number of leaders in our community are starting to change the way they look at things. That has a repercussion on the longer tail of our community, and so I do see it's a more strategic marketing perspective fusing into some of those conversations. Now, to your point, the question you were then asking is, how about price, and how are we going to move away from rebates? So I just want to moderate what I'm saying. Yeah? So price has been important for a long time, and my guess is price will remain very important for a long time. However, what really matters for a brand is the return on investment.
Yeah.
And return on investment is about two variables. No, it's price and outcome. Now, price is easier to deal with, in a company, because it's a known quantifiable variable, and you can focus on that. In a way, it sort of reassures you that you control at least one variable in the equation. But companies among the most visible in our brand community are realizing that you're not going to cut your way to growth. That is simply not an option. And you were mentioning Project Spring. I mean, that is the direct expression of that.
Yes, exactly.
I think there are some of our most influential brand owners in our community which realize that that the agenda needs to be a growth agenda rather than a sort of simplistic focus on price. But I'm not saying that price is not going to be important in the future. Yeah, but I think it is fair to say that change is on its way, definitely.
Yeah. So, which is good. I mean, the changes. There's a lot that changes, but also, do you get ever frustrated with sometimes the snail's pace of like the way that the industry can react to things? I was talking to somebody earlier this morning, and the reference came up to the ANA's amazing kind of transparency reporting that was done in 2016. Which is pushing on 5 years now since that was published. And the question, which we've been asked probably 200 times in those 5 years is, why was there not more reaction to this? And you say, well, it just takes time. It takes time to kind of filter through. A lot changes, but do you feel a sense of real tangible change from the CMO? Are they really changing, or are they just saying different things?
I mean, you're alluding to a big frustration here in WFA, and I know that my colleague Bob Liodis shares that frustration, is the fact that we haven't been able to move the needle on transparency. And I can tell you that we're determined not to leave it there. Yeah. But that's clearly part of the stuff. It's unfinished business, and something which we need to go back, and there needs to be a better way for us to change the practice in the industry. That's simply not sustainable.
Yeah.
But then there are other things where we've been making change faster than you would ever have believed possible 6 months ago. Just look at what we've just announced on Global Alliance for Response Media in terms of the way we're going to be dealing with harmful content and hate speech on platforms. Who would have? I remember we launched GARM in Cannes in June 2019, and I had plenty of kudos, and thank you for doing that. It's very important. But there were so many people who were just thinking, goodness me, you're making big promises here.
Yeah.
And who would have thought that we would be where we are now? And I'm confident that we will be making big changes. Or you may have seen the cross-media measurement piece, which we issued, the framework. Now, again, when we started, and this time was me actually, when we started in March 2019, I had actually the WFA board tell me we need to be doing this. And I thought this is a poison chalice,
Us too. We're never going to do that. Don't waste your time. I mean,
exactly. Yeah. And guess what? Something has changed in the environment. So we may have tried a few years ago, there was no appetite, etc. And guess what? Something has changed. And what has changed is the amount which goes into digital. It is the pressure on companies and on CMOs to be accountable for what is often now the single biggest budget line in a company.
Yeah.
And it is the fact that we simply cannot continue to frustrate consumers, people, by targeting them without even knowing if we've touched them using a different platform. And so and sometimes there's a sort of constellation of stars which make things possible you've tried in the past. And here I think we are where we are. And I think we're going to be changing something which very few people would have thought possible. There's a pilot project which will be launched in the UK called Origin, probably in May next year. And the ANA is driving a very exciting project which should also see the light of the day next year. So there's things which are frustrating and slow, but then luckily there are things where we do make breakthroughs.
That's good. And you've alluded there to in our observation, it feels like there's a lot more collaboration now between different trade bodies than maybe there has been in the past. And maybe, I know it's always very friendly and amicable, but you kind of competed, haven't you, for marketers' attention? But I think from the marketer's perspective, it's incredibly exciting to see, WFA, ANA, ISBA, and many others around the world starting to collaborate on some key initiatives and pull resources together and pull marketers' attention together. Has that been a very conscious thing for you, or has that happened organically through your members?
Look, I think it's fair to say that there's really good level of collaboration. And you said, I've been around for quite some time. I've been leading the organization for 17 years, but clearly in recent years there's more collaboration. I think as always there's a question of personalities. It sounds stupid, but it does make a difference. I think there is also an obligation to pull together in order to be climbing big mountains. No, you talk about cross-media measurement or hate speech. There's no way you're going to be doing it on your own. So you need to be coming together to do that, and you have a clear mandate from your members. This needs to be delivered. And then third thing, I think there's a change in governance. In the past, when industry organizations had to do something, they'd just sit down together, with everyone around the table, and they'll try and find a consensus. I find that the formats which have worked best are the formats where it's coalition of the willing. Who has a real stake in making this happen, and who has the energy, to contribute to that, and where do our interests intersect? And sometimes they don't intersect, but then you better know it before you start, and you pick the right partners. And I think those formats have really helped us just get this stuff done. Yeah.
Good. Well, it's been really good to see,
Yeah.
and that's exciting. Starting to kind of get these conversations, kind of coordinated. We've got a few questions coming in. I'm going to pick one which I'm slightly biased of, and that's our new global CEO of assurance, PJ Leary. So I don't know if you're aware of him, but you probably know PJ. But we acquired his firm a couple of weeks ago, and to kind of expand our media auditing capabilities, particularly in the US. But he's asked a really good question. The first one, Nadia, if you want to just bring that up, because this gets to the kind of the root of the challenge for the CMO, and it was a question that I had: is the CMO is such a broad agenda now? How do you focus, and what do you focus on? And is that something that the WFA helps CMOs figure out?
Yeah, it's a good question, and I wouldn't qualify them as exhausted. Certainly, the most successful ones, I don't think they're exhausted, but their tasks are daunting. You may have seen we produced a research a few months ago called the Marketer of the Future, and it basically says exactly that. There are just so many different pieces to the puzzle that it's a daunting task. And the marketer of the future is actually someone who's not supposed to have lived through each of those and to be an expert in each of those, but someone who's able to assemble a team and to be the sort of visionary who's going to be giving a strategy and a sense of direction, and who's definitely comfortable operating both in a sort of creative environment while still having necessary rigor in order to be a credible interlocutor for the CFO. So it's a tough job requirement. Yeah.
Yeah.
And do you, Stefan, just on that, do you see a healthy pipeline of new generation CMOs coming through that are willing to take on that challenge? I mean, there's some very high profile kind of senior CMOs out there that champion the narrative, but what's the pipeline like in your perspective?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not looking at it in terms of pipeline. I mean, I'm seeing lots of very talented more junior marketers who could end up being CMOs. What I find interesting in our business is that you have incredibly and increasingly diverse origins of those CMOs. So when I look at the membership of WFA over the last 2-3 years, how that has changed, reflecting an increasingly diverse community of brand owners, sectors you wouldn't have thought of, geographies you wouldn't have thought of. And we have companies coming in from Middle East, from Latin America, from Asia. We have D2C companies, and I find that there are people in those companies which come with unique backgrounds and abilities to operate in such a diverse role. That's where I see really exciting profiles. Yeah, and we're going to be featuring them in our Global Market Week next April. I mean, it's not necessarily the sort of biggest brands, but it's actually personalities which come with a really interesting background and which could potentially become the next stars in the future. Yeah.
That's it. That's very exciting. It leads perfectly onto our kind of final wrap up, really, which is just looking ahead. So Global Marketer Week has been a key date in marketers' calendars for a long time. Maybe you can just talk to us a bit about what you're planning with that. I guess you don't know exactly where that's going to be or how that's going to work yet. And also the Global Marketer of the Year you do at this time of year as well has launched. Is Mark Pritchard on the list again? I don't know whether he seems to me want to get a clean sweep of these things, but who's in contention this year for Marketer of the Year, do you think?
Look, we've just opened the competition, and so we've asked for nominations, and everyone is actually welcome to nominate CMOs for that list. So I'll be able to talk to you about the short list probably in January. But no, it's a very exciting competition, and I know that we have we had very very good contenders in the past, and I'm sure we'll have a good list this year too. Sure. Now, specific to our Global Marketer Week, it's indeed our tentpole event. That's the one big moment in the year. We're going to be doing a global multi-hub hybrid event. Yeah, so. It's going to take place in different locations around the world over 3 days, so with different time zones. but the model is going to be will remain the same. It's about challenging ourselves as we look into the future and get some of the best brains in our industry as well as outside of our industry. I find that at some of our industry's events, at times we tend to be too self-congratulatory. So we like to bring in people who just have different views of looking at us, and I think that's more important than ever. And so it's going to be a good mix, I think. So we're working on it right now.
Good. Well, good luck with that. I know there's an incredible challenge. Everyone's trying to plan events for next year is having to kind of figure out a new model. Stefan, the last thing to say is really just thank you for your leadership. You mentioned, Bob at the ANA, and between the two of you and a very small select other people who remain just wholly objective and independent and take a very holistic view of the challenges of a CMO, which, as we've just talked about, are spreading kind of further and wider, and the challenges get greater and greater. We need trade bodies more than ever to provide that insight and that forum. So thank you to you and your team.
Thank you. I appreciate
it. Without you, I don't know what we would be doing. We'd just be arguing, I think, on the internet. So thank you for that. Listen, best of luck with the remainder of the year and the initiatives coming up. And we look forward to all the next reporting, which we will no doubt be talking about.
Thank you, Stefan.
Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Yes. Good. Again, brilliant insight. If you wanted to know the thinking and the challenges the challenges being a marketer, I didn't actually ask. I was going to ask Stefan if he would be a CMO these days. Maybe that's putting him in a tricky position.
He's a CEO now.
He's a CEO. That's true. Good. Well, listen, that's your media snack for this week. Thank you so much for watching. Keep the questions coming. Sorry we didn't get to everything today. That was really good. But we'll see you next week, every Friday, 11 a.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. UK. Click subscribe to be updated of future episodes, and we'll see you next time.
Bye for now.